The house was eerily quiet, save for the rhythmic ticking of the clock, each second that passed hammering into Barton's brain, a reminder of the inevitable. He stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes fixed on Julie, who was calmly packing her suitcase on their bed. The sight of her folding clothes that once held so much meaning for the both of them, twisted something deep inside him. She hummed a cheerful tune under her breath, completely oblivious to the storm brewing in the room. To her, this was just another ordinary night. But to Barton, tonight was far from ordinary. "What are you doing?" Barton finally asked, his voice cracking under the weight of his emotions. Julie didn't bother looking up. "Packing," she said, her tone matter-of-fact, almost too casual, as though discussing the weather. "Packing for what?" Barton's voice was tight with tension, his body rigid as he fought to keep his emotions in check. Julie paused for a moment, seemingly contemplating how much to reveal before responding with a slight edge of excitement in her voice. "A couple's trip," she said flatly, "with my boss, and you can't stop me." Barton's heart skipped a beat. "A couple's trip?" he echoed, his mind racing. "You're joking, right?" Julie sighed, finally looking up at him, her eyes flashing with irritation. "No, Barton, I'm not joking. We're going to a resort. It's a chance for me to impress him." Barton's mind raced, trying to grasp the full meaning of her words. "Impress him? How exactly are you planning to impress him?" His voice was strained, almost panicked. Julie gave him a pointed look, raising an eyebrow as if he should already know. "With my stretching skills in bed," she said, a bitter edge to her voice. "He promised me a promotion if I do it right." The words hit Barton like a physical blow. His chest tightened and the air seemed to leave his lungs. He staggered back slightly, gripping the doorframe for support. "What the hell are you talking about? You're cheating on me with your boss?" Julie shrugged as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "It's been going on for months, Barton, and guess what? He's better than you in every way." Barton's hands clenched into fists and the room seemed to spin. The suspicion had always been there. Late nights at the office, secretive phone calls. But to hear it so casually thrown in his face was almost more than he could bear. His vision blurred with rage and his voice cracked as he choked out, "Julie, if you walk out that door tonight, I swear I'll break your legs. Our marriage will be over." Julie laughed, a cold, humorless sound that sent a chill through Barton. "Dumbass, you know what? Our marriage was over for months. Ever since I wrote him at his desk, I realized you're not enough for me. You're just too blind to see it." Barton staggered backwards, as if the woman standing before him wasn't Julie, the woman he had loved for so many years. His chest felt tight, his heart breaking. "Why, Julie? Why would you do this?" His voice was raw, a mixture of anger and desperation. Julie rolled her eyes, carelessly tossing a pair of high heels into her suitcase. "Why not, Barton? I'm tired of this life, tired of you. My boss offers me excitement, adventure, a future. You're just boring." The pain was suffocating, but Barton wasn't ready to give up yet. "We can fix this, Julie. We can go to counseling, work on our marriage. Don't throw everything away for some cheap thrill." Julie's eyes flashed with annoyance. "A cheap thrill? You think this is about sex? It's about more than that. It's about my future, my career, my happiness, and you're not part of that anymore." Barton's heart raced in his chest, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You don't have to do this, Julie. We can find another way." Julie shook her head, zipping up her suitcase with finality. "I'm done with this life, Barton, and I'm done with you." She pushed past him, her perfume lingering in the air, and walked out of the bedroom. Barton stood motionless for a moment, his mind reeling from the shock of it all. He had never imagined it would come to this, not after everything they had shared. But as he heard the front door open and close, he knew it was real. Julie was gone, and she wasn't coming back. For a brief moment, Barton felt completely lost, as though the ground had been ripped out from under him. But then something inside him shifted. The initial shock and pain were quickly replaced by a cold, hard resolve. His breathing slowed and a steely determination settled over him. "If that's how you want it," he muttered under his breath, his voice steady but cold. "Then that's exactly what you'll get." The ticking of the clock seemed louder now, a reminder that time was moving forward whether he liked it or not. Barton's mind cleared, and he knew what he had to do. Julie thought she could walk all over him, throw away their life together like it was nothing. But she was wrong. She had made her choice, and now it was time for him to make his. Julie's car had long disappeared down the street by the time Barton moved. His body was tense, his mind laser-focused. He had always been the calm one, the rational one. But tonight was different. Tonight, he would take control. He moved quickly through the house, heading toward the home office, shutting the door behind him. The room was filled with reminders of their shared life. Photos, certificates, books. But Barton didn't dwell on these. His focus was on the desk where Julie's work laptop sat. She trusted him enough to leave it unattended. She had never imagined he'd have any interest in it. Barton sat down at the desk, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He knew her password, their wedding date combined with her favorite color. It unlocked the laptop effortlessly. The screen blinked to life, revealing her cluttered desktop. Icons, open documents, emails. Barton didn't hesitate. He opened the email app, searching for her boss's name. A list of messages popped up, each one a painful reminder of her betrayal. He opened the first one, his eyes scanning the screen quickly. "Can't wait for this weekend. I booked the best suite. We'll finally have some real time together. Don't worry about work. It's all taken care of." Barton clenched his jaw, anger bubbling beneath the surface. He copied the emails, dragging them into a new folder on the desktop labeled Personal. And then he plugged in a USB drive and transferred everything, emails, chat logs, attachments, into the folder. He wasn't just going to confront her. He was going to destroy the life she was building with her lies. When the transfer was complete, he turned to her work chat logs. They were casual, filled with inside jokes, invitations, and explicit content. Barton copied everything, adding it to the USB drive. When he was done, he deleted all traces of his actions, leaving everything else untouched. The laptop was just the beginning. Barton stood up and left the office, heading toward the bedroom. He found Julie's vanity table cluttered with makeup, jewelry, and perfume. Opening the top drawer, he found her jewelry box, filled with pieces he had bought over the years, alongside a few newer items. One bracelet in particular caught his eye. It was a gift from her boss. The thought of her wearing that bracelet while being with another man filled him with a rage he could barely contain. He took out the bracelet and a few other pieces, shoving them into his pocket. These would be the first things to go. She cherished these items, flaunted them. She wouldn't notice they were gone until it was too late, and by then her world would be starting to crumble. Next, he turned his attention to her clothes. Julie's designer dresses and shoes hung in neat rows in the closet. Barton reached for the suitcase on the top shelf, the one she used for business trips, and began stuffing her expensive clothes into it, deliberately wrinkling and creasing them as he did. She had spent a small fortune on these things, thinking they made her look powerful and desirable, but they were just things, easily taken away. He zipped up the suitcase and shoved it under the bed, knowing Julie wouldn't notice it was gone until she needed it. By then, her world would be falling apart. Barton stood in the quiet of the house, staring at the suitcase under the bed. The silence felt oppressive, almost suffocating. His hands were still trembling from the rage and frustration he had experienced, but now a new feeling took over. It wasn't satisfaction, not yet. The weight of what he had just done was beginning to sink in. His mind was focused on the next step. He needed to make sure Julie understood the full extent of the consequences of her betrayal. The calm, rational man he had always been was gone. He was someone else now, a man fueled by a cold, calculated anger. The clock on the wall ticked away, reminding him that time was moving forward. As the night stretched on, Barton's thoughts sharpened. He knew that the only way to make Julie truly understand was to destroy the life she had been building with her lies. He would make her regret every single choice she had made. Barton waited until the next morning to act, giving Julie just enough time to begin processing the consequences of her actions. He had already done what needed to be done with the laptop. Now it was time to send a message. With a steady hand, Barton opened his phone and dialed the number of a lawyer he had kept in touch with from his work. The man owed him a favor, and today Barton would call in that favor. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was groggy, still waking up from sleep. "It's Barton. I need your help," Barton said, his voice steady but cold. The lawyer sounded cautious. "What's going on?" "I'm filing for divorce," Barton said, his words sharp, final. "I want it done quickly. Can you make it happen?" There was a brief pause on the other end. "Are you sure? What happened?" Barton didn't hesitate. "Just start the paperwork. I'll send you the details later. I want this done fast." "All right, I'll get on it," the lawyer replied. "I'll get the documents to you." Barton hung up the phone, his mind already calculating the next steps. The divorce would be swift, but he needed more than just legal separation. He had to make sure that Julie's life, her career, everything she had worked for, crumbled like the fragile house of cards it was. He wanted to hurt her in the way that would make her fully grasp the consequences of her betrayal. Julie didn't return that day. Barton was alone in the house, gathering the pieces of his plan. He had already started dismantling her life, and now it was time to send the final blow. As evening drew near, Barton's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He opened it to find an email from his lawyer confirming that the divorce paperwork had been initiated. "It will be served in the next few days." Barton didn't need to wait for it to be finalized. He had already set everything in motion. Now it was time to focus on Julie's boss. He opened his computer and started drafting an email to Michael, Julie's lover. He attached the incriminating emails, the chat logs, the photos, everything that would expose their affair. The message was cold and clinical, as if he were merely delivering information rather than exacting revenge. "Michael," Barton typed, "you ruined my marriage. Now watch yours burn." He clicked send before he could second-guess himself. The action was immediate, and within moments he knew the impact would be felt. Michael's reputation, built on professionalism and integrity, was about to be shattered in an instant. Barton imagined the scene at Michael's office, frantic calls from HR, emergency meetings with the board of directors, the public relations nightmare that would follow. By noon, Barton's phone buzzed with a news alert, a local business scandal involving a high-profile executive. Barton didn't need to read the details. He already knew what had happened. Michael's world was collapsing, just as Barton had planned. But the consequences weren't over yet. Barton wasn't done, not by a long shot. The following day, Julie arrived home late in the afternoon. Barton had been waiting, his anger simmering beneath the surface. But now it was tempered by something colder, more methodical. As Julie stepped inside, her face showed the wear of the previous days, exhaustion mixed with irritation. But when her eyes fell on the scene before her, her expression shifted to confusion, then unease. "What's going on?" she asked cautiously, her voice trembling slightly. Barton didn't respond immediately. He allowed the silence to stretch between them, letting the weight of the situation settle in. He stood up slowly, his movements deliberate as he stepped closer. Julie's unease deepened into something resembling fear. "Welcome home, Julie," Barton said, his voice steady but icy. "I hope you had a pleasant trip." Julie's eyes flicked to the open laptop on the coffee table, the scattered documents, the grim expression on Barton's face. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. "What is all this?" she asked, her voice trembling now. Barton didn't respond immediately. He let the silence hang between them before finally speaking, his tone devoid of emotion. "This, Julie," he said, "is proof. Proof of your betrayal. Proof of your lies. Proof of your greed." Julie's face drained of color as she took a step back, her hands trembling. You went through my things?" Her voice shook with a mixture of shock and anger, but Barton could hear the underlying fear in her words. "I've seen the emails, the messages, the photos," he replied, his voice cold. "I know everything, Julie." Julie's breath hitched. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She turned her head from side to side as if searching for an escape. "This isn't what you think," she stammered, panic rising in her voice. "Isn't it?" Barton cut her off, his voice rising now. "Explain how you've been sleeping with your boss, how you've been planning this affair for months behind my back. Explain how you've thrown away everything we had for a promotion and some cheap thrills." Julie's mouth opened and closed, but no sound escaped. Her face twisted with horror as the weight of Barton's words settled in. I never thought it would go this far," she whispered, almost pleading. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I'm sure you didn't, Julie," Barton replied, his voice cold and detached. "But you did, and now everyone knows what you've done. I've sent copies of these emails and messages to your boss's wife, to your HR department, to your friends and your family. They all know now, Julie. They know everything." Julie's face twisted with horror as the realization set in. "You can't do that," she whispered. "You can't ruin my life like this." "I already have," Barton replied, his tone unyielding. "And it's not over yet." Julie reached out to him, her voice trembling as she pleaded. "Please, Barton, we can fix this. We can work through this. Don't destroy everything." Barton stared at her outstretched hand, feeling a flicker of the old pain, the old love, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of her betrayal. He stepped back, out of her reach. "Everything is already destroyed, Julie. You destroyed it the moment you chose him over us." Julie collapsed to her knees, her tears spilling over. "Please, Barton. I made a mistake. I never meant for this to happen. I thought I could have both, my career, my affair, and still keep you." Barton looked down at her, his heart as cold as stone. "You never loved me, Julie. You loved the life I gave you, the comfort, the security. But when that wasn't enough, you found someone else, someone you thought could give you more." Julie's sobs grew louder, her body shaking with the force of her tears. "Please, I'm begging you. Don't throw everything away. I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. I'll cut all ties with him. Just please don't leave me." Barton's expression remained unmoved, his resolve unbroken. "It's too late, Julie. I've already filed for divorce. The papers will be here in the morning." Julie gasped, her face crumpling in disbelief. No, you can't." "I can," Barton said firmly. "And I have. You'll be served tomorrow. Now get your things and get out of my house." Julie's face crumpled, and she let out a wail of despair as she collapsed onto the floor. "Please don't do this," she cried. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Barton turned away from her, his heart heavy but resolute. He paused for a moment, listening to the sound of her crying, but he didn't look back. "Goodbye, Julie," he said softly, his voice final. 2 days passed. Julie's life continued to crumble, just as Barton had planned. He watched from the sidelines, distant and cold, as the fallout unfolded. Her career was in ruins. Her friends and family were turning their backs on her. Even Michael, her boss and lover, was no longer in control of his position. The scandal had destroyed them both. But Barton knew, deep down, that the revenge had come at a cost. As he sat in the living room, surrounded by the remnants of his plan, a hollow emptiness began to creep in. He had won, but the victory felt bitter, hollow. The doorbell rang, snapping Barton out of his thoughts. He opened the door to find Julie standing there, a broken shell of the woman she once was. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Barton stood in the doorway, unsure of what to say. Julie looked different now, pale, drawn, her eyes filled with a sadness that cut through him. "What do you want, Julie?" Barton asked, his voice tired and devoid of the anger that had once fueled him. "I just wanted to talk," she said, her eyes pleading. "Please, Barton, just let me explain." Julie stepped inside and Barton let her. She hesitated as she entered the living room, her eyes darting around the room as though seeing it for the first time. The silence between them was thick, weighted with everything that had transpired. The remnants of their life together, photos, memories, and the cold, empty space left by her departure hung in the air. Barton sat across from her, the chair creaking under his weight. Julie's hands trembled as she clasped them together, her knuckles white with the pressure. Her face was drawn, drained of color. The woman who had once been so confident now was a shadow of herself. "I know you hate me," Julie began, her voice shaking. "And I don't blame you. I've lost everything because of what I did, and I deserve it. But you have to understand, I never wanted to hurt you like this." Barton stared at her, his expression unreadable. The anger that had once driven him was fading, replaced by something colder, quieter. The wound she had left was still raw, but there was no satisfaction in this conversation. There was no joy in seeing her broken. "You did hurt me, Julie," Barton said quietly, his voice heavy. "More than I ever thought possible." Julie wiped at her eyes, nodding. "I know, I can never undo what I've done, but please, just understand that I didn't plan for any of this. It spiraled out of control. I was stupid, selfish. I thought I could have it all, my career, my affair, and still keep you. But I was wrong." Barton clenched his fists, feeling the familiar ache of betrayal. "You can't have everything, Julie. You chose him over us." Her face crumpled, and she collapsed to her knees, clutching his pant legs as she sobbed. "Please, Barton, I'm begging you. Don't throw everything away. I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. Cut ties with him. Just please don't leave me." Barton looked down at her, his eyes cold as ice. "It's too late, Julie. I've already filed for divorce. The papers are on their way." Julie gasped, her face pale with shock. "No, no, you can't." "I can and I have," Barton replied firmly. "I've moved the money, the assets. You'll get what's left, but it won't be much. Now get out. Get out of my house." Julie's sobs filled the room as she crumpled on the floor, utterly broken. But Barton didn't look back as she left. The house was empty. Barton sat alone in the living room. His heart was cold, but there was a flicker of something inside him. Hope, perhaps, that one day he could rebuild. But for now, as Julie disappeared from his life forever, Barton realized that the price of revenge wasn't victory. It was losing everything he had ever known.